Hey y'all, Auntie Grace here. Today I'm sharing a confession I never thought I'd say out loud. I believed my marriage was solid, the kind built on routines, laughter, and Sunday coffee. But one tiny heart emoji on my husband's phone cracked that illusion wide open. What I uncovered wasn't just cheating rumors, it was a hidden life, a secret name, and a twist that hit me like cold water. If you've ever felt betrayed, stay with me, because this story ends with truth, karma, and a lesson I had to learn the hard way. I took a slow breath. I reminded myself to stay calm. I watched his eyes, waiting for the truth. My heart kept thumping, but my voice stayed steady. I thought my life in suburban Ohio was steady and safe, the kind of ordinary that feels like a warm blanket. Mark and I had been married 8 years, and our biggest fights used to be about who forgot to switch the laundry. We had a small brick house in a quiet neighborhood, a golden retriever named Honey, and a rhythm that made me believe love was simple. Mark was a project manager at a construction firm, the dependable guy everyone trusted. I worked at a local clinic, and we met for dinner most nights, ate in front of the TV, and talked about our plans like we had forever. But lately, Mark started acting like he was living in two worlds. He guarded his phone like it held national secrets, took late meetings that didn't match his calendar, and suddenly cared a little too much about his hair and cologne. At first, I blamed stress. I told myself, he's just trying to look professional. He's getting older, he wants to feel good, but something in my gut kept whispering, watch him. One Tuesday, I teased him, trying to keep it light. Since when do you wear cologne to the grocery store? I asked. He smiled too, quickly. Just trying to stay sharp, he said. Sharp for who? I laughed. For you, he replied, but his eyes slid away from mine. I tried again. You don't have to impress me, you know. He kissed my forehead. I like doing it. I nodded, but my chest felt tight. Then the late meetings started. He'd come home after 9, sometimes 10, and drop his keys like he was exhausted by a crowd. He'd say, big deadline, or client crisis, and I would nod because I wanted to be the supportive wife. Still, something in my heart felt off, like a quiet alarm. One Thursday night, Mark walked in, smiling at a text, and he didn't notice me at the kitchen island. His thumb moved fast, and I caught a flash of a heart emoji next to a name I hadn't seen before, Lena. My stomach dropped. It felt like someone grabbed my insides and twisted. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I turned back to my cutting board and kept slicing tomatoes like my hands belonged to someone else. Hey babe, he said, too cheerful. Hey, I answered, steady as stone. He leaned in, kissed my cheek, and I smelled that cologne again, stronger than normal. Dinner smells great, thanks, I said, and my voice sounded normal, which scared me. He sat down like nothing happened. How was your day? It was fine, I lied. He nodded. Good, I forced a smile. You look refreshed, he chuckled. Busy? Day, just trying to keep up, I said, and swallowed hard. After we ate, he washed dishes like he was trying to be extra good. You okay? He asked. I'm fine, I lied again. He hesitated. Work's just been a lot. Sure, I said, staring at his hands. He dried a plate and glanced at his phone. I'm gonna shower. Go ahead, I replied, still calm. He paused. Love you. Love you too, I said, but my voice felt borrowed. That night, Mark fell asleep quickly. His breathing got deep, and Honey curled against his legs. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying that name, Lena. I whispered it once, testing how it sounded in the dark. Then I slid out of bed, took my laptop to the guest room, and logged into our phone bill account. Mark never handled the bills. That was my thing. I clicked through the call details, and my eyes locked on a number that showed up over and over, dozens of calls a week, always during his work hours. My throat burned. I stared at the screen until my eyes felt dry, then whispered, so it's real. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to wake him up and scream. But something in me decided to stay quiet until I knew everything. The next morning, I tried one more time to give him a chance. Over coffee, I asked, anything you want to tell me? He looked up, surprised. Like what? About anything, I said. He chuckled, forced. No, why? I shrugged, just checking in. He leaned over and squeezed my hand. You're sweet. I love you. I nodded, but my stomach twisted. He stood. I gotta run. Okay, I said. He kissed my forehead. See you later. I watched him leave and whispered, who are you? All day at work, I floated like a ghost. My friend and co-worker Tasha noticed. Girl, you look pale, she said. I didn't sleep, I admitted. Mark, keeping you up? She asked with a grin. I wanted to laugh, but my throat tightened. Something like that. Tasha's smile faded. Okay, talk to me. I shook my head. Not yet. She leaned closer. You're scaring me? I'm scaring myself, I whispered. Tasha sighed. Whatever it is, don't carry it alone. I nodded, but my eyes stung. That evening, Mark came home and tossed his jacket on the chair. I might have another late one tomorrow, he said. I forced a smile. Okay, he glanced at his phone when it buzzed, then turned the screen away. I watched him do it, and my heart cracked a little more. You hungry? I asked. Not really, he said quickly. Since when? I replied. He shrugged. Just tired. Want to talk? I tried. He shook his head. Not now. I nodded. Pretending that didn't hurt, he walked away, and I stared at his back like it was a stranger's. I started noticing everything. The way he angled his phone. The way he stepped into the garage for privacy. The way he said my name like he was trying to prove something. And the worst part was how normal he acted in front of me, like I was supposed to be blind. I felt humiliated in my own house, like the fool in a story everyone else knew. My mind kept replaying that heart emoji, and the word cheating started echoing in my chest like a drum. I didn't want to believe my husband was the kind of man who could betray me. But denial doesn't stop the truth from being true. That night, as he brushed his teeth, I stood in the doorway and said, Mark, who is Lena? He froze, toothpaste foam on his lip. What, Lena? I repeated, calm. Who is she? He swallowed. Just someone from work. From work? I echoed. He nodded fast. Yeah, a vendor. Why? I clenched my jaw. No reason. He relaxed, but I didn't. He rinsed his mouth. You're acting weird. I'm tired, I said. Okay, he muttered, and walked past me. I walked back to bed, and I knew in my bones that I was stepping into a storm. I told myself I needed proof before I made a move, because accusations without evidence would turn me into the crazy wife. I wasn't going to give him that power. So I started collecting receipts. I screenshot the call logs. I wrote down dates and times. I took photos of his new cologne on the bathroom shelf. I hated myself for becoming a detective in my own marriage, but I hated his lies more. Each night, I listened to his sweet voice say, "Good night, babe," and I wondered who else he said it to. On Saturday, he claimed he had to run to the office. I watched him put on that new shirt, adjust his watch, and smile at his phone. "Don't wait up," he said. I smiled back. "Drive safe," I said, like a good wife. He paused. "You sure you're okay?" "Yep," I answered. He nodded. "All right." The garage door shut, and the house went silent. Honey looked up at me, ears perked. "Something's wrong," I whispered to the dog. I opened my laptop again, and stared at that number, pulsing in my mind like a bruise. I told myself, Monday, I follow him. Honey sighed like she understood. I decided that whatever I found, I would face it with my eyes open. Because the name Lena was already living rent-free in my marriage, and I was done pretending I didn't feel it. I took a slow breath. I reminded myself to stay calm. I watched his eyes, waiting for the truth. My heart kept thumping, but my voice stayed steady. The next day, I became someone I barely recognized, calm on the outside, shaken on the inside. I packed Mark's favorite turkey sandwich, grabbed 2 bags of chips, and drove to his office like I was the sweetest wife in Ohio. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I kept telling myself, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Lena really is a vendor. Maybe I'm about to embarrass myself. But then I remembered the heart emoji, the late night calls, and the way Mark's eyes darted away like he was hiding something fragile. My chest tightened as I pulled into the office lot and smoothed my hair like this was just a friendly surprise. At the front desk I smiled. "Hi, I'm Mark's wife. I'm just dropping off lunch." The receptionist blinked. "Oh, isn't here today." I forced a laugh. "Really?" He said he was slammed. She looked uncomfortable. "Yeah, he took a personal day." "A personal day," I repeated, polite but stunned. She offered a weak smile. Maybe he forgot to tell you. I nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe. I added, is he on a job site? She shook her head. I'm not sure. I whispered, okay, thank you, and walked away. I reached my car and sat there with the lunch bag in my lap like it was proof of how naive I'd been. In the parking lot, I called Mark, straight to voicemail. I tried again, voicemail. I texted, where are you? No response. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel and breathed through my nose. The humiliation hit hard. Not only did he lie to my face, he didn't even bother to cover it well. I decided to wait. I parked across the street where I could see the office entrance, feeling like a spy in my own life. An hour passed, then another. I've watched people come and go, and my mind built 1,000 ugly pictures. Tasha texted, you okay? And I replied, at an appointment, because I didn't want to say, I'm stalking my husband. Around 2, Mark's car drove right past the office and turned into the lot of a coffee shop down the block. My stomach dropped again, and my hands started shaking. I pulled forward and parked where I could see the entrance. Mark stepped out of his car, looking relaxed. He wasn't in work stress mode. He looked happy. He checked his phone, smiled, and walked inside like he belonged there. Minutes later, a woman arrived. She wasn't flashy. She wore a simple sweater, jeans, and boots. Her hair was tied back, and she carried a tote bag. She looked normal, like someone I might have met at Target and chatted with about couponzi. She walked in, and my breath caught when Mark stood up like he'd been waiting. They hugged, not quick, familiar, then they sat close, and Mark reached across the table, touching her hand like it was natural. I whispered, oh my God, alone, in my car. I lifted my phone and snapped pictures through the windshield. My hands trembled so hard I almost dropped it. I watched them talk, laugh, and lean in. Mark nodded, like he cared about every word. I muttered, he never listens to me like that. I snapped another photo and swallowed a sob. Honey's fur flashed in my mind. Our couch, our home, I whispered. So this is what you do on personal days. My voice sounded small, even in my own ears. After about 40 minutes, they stood up. The woman hugged him again, and Mark kissed her forehead. That kiss wasn't romantic in the loud, dramatic way, but it was intimate, protective. It made my skin crawl because it looked like a habit. Then they walked out together. She got into her own car, and Mark stood there watching her leave, smiling like a fool. When she drove off, he turned and headed back to his car. I ducked down like a teenager. You're really doing this, I muttered. Then I watched him drive away, and I followed him, keeping 2 cars back. My heart pounded so loud it felt like it filled the car. He headed toward the edge of town, then turned into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. A modest apartment complex, with peeling paint and tight parking spots. He parked, got out, and walked toward one of the units like he knew exactly where he was going. I whispered, this is where you've been. My hands were sweating, but I stayed still. Mark knocked, and a few seconds later the door opened. A figure stepped out, and Mark went inside. I sat frozen, sweat on my palms. I wanted to storm up there, pound on the door, and scream. But I remembered my promise, proof first, then power. So I waited. 20 minutes later, Mark came out alone, adjusting his jacket like nothing happened. He walked to his car, and I snapped more photos. Then he drove home like a normal husband returning from work. That night, Mark walked in and said, long day. I looked up from the couch. Long day, I repeated. He nodded, tossing his keys. Yeah, the client kept changing everything. Sounds exhausting, I said. He sighed. It was, I'm starving. I stared at him. Who is Lena? His face went pale, like all the color drained out at once. What? Lena, I said again. Who is she? He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes flicked toward the hallway like he wanted to run. Why are you asking that? Because I saw her name, I said, steady, and I've seen the calls. He swallowed. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I demanded. He rubbed his face. She's a friend. A friend, I repeated, and my laugh sounded bitter. You kissed your friends on the forehead. His eyes widened. You followed me? Yep, I said, and my voice shook for the first time. I followed you because you lied. He lifted his hands. Okay, Listen. It's complicated. Complicated is what people say when they're guilty, I snapped. Mark stepped closer. Please, don't do this right now. I'm tired. I'm tired too, I said. Tired of feeling stupid. He reached for my arm. Babe, you're not stupid. I pulled away. Then explain. He whispered, not tonight. I stared him down. Then when he couldn't answer. Before he could speak, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. Unknown number. My stomach dropped. I glanced at the screen, expecting spam, but the message was short, direct, and it made my blood run cold. Please don't confront him yet. I need to talk to you. Mark noticed my face. What is it? He asked. I stared at the screen. It's from her. His eyes flashed. Lena. I didn't answer. He stepped forward. Sarah, give me that. I held the phone tighter. No. His voice turned sharp. You don't understand. I snapped. Then make me understand. He looked away, jaw clenched. I whispered, you're scared. He muttered, I'm trying to protect you. I laughed. Bitter. Me from what? Your own lies? For the first time, I saw fear behind his words. Not the fear of losing me, but the fear of losing control. Whatever this was, it wasn't a simple cheating story. And I suddenly realized the person with the real power might not be my husband at all. I took a slow breath. I reminded myself to stay calm. I watched his eyes, waiting for the truth. My heart kept thumping, but my voice stayed steady. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at that message like it might explode. Mark hovered in the doorway, pretending to be calm, but his fingers kept tapping his thigh. Who texted you? He asked again. I held up the phone. Lena, I said. His shoulders dropped. Please don't respond. Don't respond. I snapped. You don't get to order me around anymore. He stepped closer. I'm telling you, it's complicated. I laughed, sharp. Everything is complicated when you're lying. He pleaded, Sarah, just trust me. I shook my head. You wrote that, he whispered. Not like this, I replied. It already is like this. I replied to the unknown number with one word. Who? A minute later, the answer came. Lena. Then another message. Please, just meet me. I can explain. Don't let him twist it. My throat tightened. I looked at Mark. Why is she warning me about you? He shook his head. Because she doesn't understand. Understand what? I demanded. He whispered. I can't talk about it tonight. Try me, I said, but he backed away. He sighed. I'm sorry. I snapped. That's not an answer. He said, please. I replied, no more please. He lowered his eyes. I'll tell you soon. I whispered. Soon is what liars say. That night, he slept on the couch. I didn't ask him to. He just did it, like he knew the bed no longer belonged to him. I lay awake, thinking about the woman from the coffee shop. She didn't look like a stereotypical mistress. She looked like someone with a purpose. And the way Mark kissed her forehead felt strange, not romantic, more like something deeper. But my pride screamed, he betrayed you, don't excuse it. Still, I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was missing something. The next afternoon, I met Lena at a quiet diner off the highway. It smelled like coffee and pancakes, and the booths were worn from decades of small-town secrets. I chose a corner seat where I could see the door. My hands were sweaty under the table. When Lena walked in, she looked nervous but determined. She scanned the room, spotted me, and approached slowly. Are you Sarah? She asked. I nodded. You're Lena. She slid into the booth. Thank you for coming. I crossed my arms, start talking. She swallowed. I'm not who you think I am, I scoffed. You mean you're not his mistress? Her eyes softened. No. Then what are you? I asked. She reached into her tote bag. Please, just look, I snapped. No games, she said quietly. I don't want to hurt you, I replied. Then, stop wasting time. She pulled out a worn photograph and slid it across the table like it was fragile. I stared. It showed Mark, younger, standing next to a woman I'd never seen before, holding a baby. Lena pointed to the baby and said, That's me. My mouth went dry. What? I whispered. She nodded, eyes glossy. I'm his daughter. I blinked, confused. That's impossible. It's not, she said. He was with my mom before he met you. I shook my head. He never told me. I know. she replied. That's why I wanted to tell you myself. I swallowed hard. So the calls are me, she said softly. And the coffee shop? I asked. Me too, she answered. I whispered, oh my God. The words didn't land at first. I felt dizzy, like the booth was tilting. Why now? I asked, gripping the edge of the table. She hesitated. Because my grandmother died. My husband's mother. I asked. Yes, she said. She was my grandmother too. I stared. So she knew about you. She did, Lena admitted. She kept in touch with me. My throat tightened. And Mark, he disappeared, she said. Then I found him. I whispered, he erased you. She nodded slowly. I think he tried to erase the past. Then she said, there's more. I leaned forward. Say it. She pulled out a folder. He's been trying to get me to sign papers. My stomach twisted. What papers? She tapped the folder. Trust documents. I froze. A trust. Yes, she said. My grandmother left money, and I'm the executor. I stared at her. He wants control. She nodded. He told me to keep it secret from you. My face burned. So he wanted you to lie to me. Lena's eyes filled with shame. He said you'd take it from him. I laughed without humor. He doesn't even know me, she whispered. He said you were controlling. My chest tightened. He called me controlling. She nodded. I'm sorry. I snapped. He's the one controlling. I opened the folder and saw legal language, official seals, and Mark's name. My hands trembled. I looked up. Are you sure this is real? Lena nodded. The lawyer called me after the funeral. I whispered, so, Mark's been meeting you to convince me, she said. To pressure you, I corrected. She nodded. Yes. I stared at her. And you believed him. She flinched at first. I wanted a father. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. I saw the pain behind her eyes. She wasn't some enemy. She was a daughter desperate for answers. And Mark had used that dot. I took a deep breath. I thought you were a mistress, I admitted. Lena's shoulders sagged. I whispered, I'm sorry. She shook her head. Don't be. I would have thought that too. I stared at the coffee cup between us. He made me feel crazy. Lena nodded. He made me feel guilty. I looked up. So what do you want? She said quietly, the truth. And to stop being manipulated. I nodded slowly. Then we do this together. Her eyes widened. You would help me? I answered. He betrayed both of us. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about her mom, about growing up without Mark, about the one birthday card he sent when she was 10. I told her about our marriage, about the lies, about the way he changed. We weren't friends yet, but we weren't enemies either. We were two women standing in the same shadow, comparing bruises, the same man left without leaving marks. When I left the diner, my legs felt like jelly. I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel. Then I drove home, and Mark was waiting, in the kitchen like a man on trial. Where were you? He asked. I dropped my purse on the chair. I met her, I said. His face tightened. What did she tell you? I looked him in the eye. She told me she's your daughter. Mark's mouth opened, and he looked like the floor vanished beneath him. I said, how long were you going to keep her secret? He whispered, Sarah. I slammed my hand on the counter. Halami flinched. I didn't know how. I laughed, shaking. You didn't know how to tell your wife you have a child. Or, you didn't know how to tell your wife you're trying to steal a trust. His eyes filled with panic. She told you about that. Yes, I said, voice low. And now, you're going to tell me the rest. Because if you don't, we'll make sure the truth finds you first. Mark swallowed hard, and I saw him realize the power had shifted. He finally said the words that proved the betrayal was even uglier than I imagined. I took a slow breath. I reminded myself to stay calm. I watched his eyes, waiting for the truth. My heart kept thumping, but my voice stayed steady. Mark sat at the kitchen table like a man who'd been caught in a spotlight. His hands were clasped so tightly his knuckles looked white. Sarah, please, he started. Don't, I said, holding up my palm. Just tell the truth. He stared at the wood grain like it might save him. My mom set up a trust, he admitted, years ago. I nodded slowly. And you hid it from me. He swallowed. It wasn't supposed to matter. It matters, I snapped. Because you met your daughter in secret, and you told her to keep secrets from me. He rubbed his forehead. I didn't want you to think I was a bad person. I laughed without humor. You didn't want me to know the real you. He finally looked up. Lena's the executor. He said, my mom, she wanted to make sure money went to her too. Say you were sweet to her because you wanted access, I said. His voice cracked. I needed it. For what? I demanded. He hesitated. Debt. My stomach clenched. What debt? He sighed. Credit cards. Some bad investments. I thought I could fix it before you noticed. I stared at him. You were willing to drain a trust your mother left for your daughter to cover your mistakes, he whispered. I panicked. I shook my head. No, you planned, I told him. You're going to call Lena and tell her you're done. Pressuring her, he shook his head. She won't listen. She will when I'm sitting beside her, I said. He stood up fast. Sarah, don't do this. I leaned in. He did this, he pleaded. We can fix it. I replied. You can't fix years of deception overnight. He said. I love you. I answered. Love doesn't come with hidden chapters, he whispered. I was ashamed. I said. Shame didn't stop you from lying. That night, I texted Lena. I'm ready. She replied. Thank you. The next morning, we met at a law office downtown. The waiting room smelled like paper and coffee. Lena sat straight-backed, but her leg bounced. I'm scared, she whispered. I'm scared too, I admitted. But we're not alone. The lawyer, Mr. Harding, called us in. Mark arrived 10 minutes later, sweating through his shirt. His eyes landed on me. Then Lena. You brought her, he hissed. Lena's voice stayed steady. I brought her because I'm done being tricked. Mark turned to the lawyer. This is family. We can handle this privately. Mr. Harding adjusted his glasses. Not when there's coercion involved. Mark's face flushed. Coercion. I'm her father, Lena replied. You're a father when it's convenient. Mr. Harding asked. Lena, do you confirm you are the executor? Yes, she said. And do you wish to deny Mark access without your consent? Yes, she repeated. Mark slammed his palm on the armrest. This is ridiculous. Mr. Harding held up a folder. We have documented messages, calls, and attempts to influence her. This is not ridiculous. Mark looked at me. Sarah, please, tell them to stop. I shook my head. You should have stopped yourself. Over the next week, Lena and I gathered everything. We saved texts. We wrote timelines. We printed call logs. Mark tried to apologize every night. I love you, he'd say. I'd answer, love doesn't hide children. He'd beg, I was ashamed. I'd reply, shame doesn't excuse betrayal. He'd whisper, I'll change. I'd say, you already changed. You became a stranger. He'd insist, I never cheated. I'd respond, you still betrayed me. He'd plead, I'm still your husband. I'd answer, a husband doesn't run secret lives. He'd cry, please don't leave. I'd say, you already left the moment you lied. Then came the twist of karma. Mark's company found out about his personal days. Apparently, he'd been using work resources to handle the trust paperwork. His boss called him into HR, and Mark came home early, pale. They're investigating me, he said. I folded my arms, because you couldn't keep your lies in one place. He dropped to his knees. Please, Sarah, don't leave me. I'll do anything. I looked down at him and felt something settle inside me. Not hate, clarity, anything. I asked. Yes, he pleaded. Then sign these, I said, sliding separation papers onto the coffee table. Mark blinked like he couldn't process it. You're serious? I'm done, I said. I walked away. He grabbed my hands. But we can fix this. I pulled back. You hit a daughter and tried to take from her. That's not a crack. That's a collapse, he cried. I never meant to hurt you, I answered softly. But you did, and you kept doing it, he whispered. I'm sorry. I nodded. I believe you're sorry you got caught. The day I moved out, I packed quietly. Tasha helped me, carrying boxers. To shore, she asked. I looked around the house that used to feel safe. I'm sure. Mark stood by the door. I'll wait for you, he said. I met his eyes. Don't he choked out. I'll prove it, I replied. You already proved who you are. Lena met me outside. She held a small envelope. My grandmother wanted you to have this, she said. I opened it and found a handwritten note from Mark's mother. It said she hoped I'd always choose truth, even when it hurt. My throat tightened. She liked you, Lena whispered. I nodded. tears finally falling. I wish she'd told me about you sooner. Lena smiled sadly. Me too. Months later, Mark tried again. He showed up at my new apartment with flowers. I'm in counseling, he said. I opened the door but didn't let him in. I'm glad, I said. He whispered, I miss you. I answered, I miss who I thought you were. He said, I never saw this coming. I replied, that's because you thought you could control the story. Lena and I kept in touch. We weren't just connected by betrayal anymore. We were connected by survival. She sent me updates about school, about her life, about the trust being protected. One day she texted, I'm proud of you. Reply, proud of us. The moral I learned is simple. When someone hides the truth, it's never just one lie. It's a whole life you didn't agree to live. And when you finally see it, you don't owe anyone your silence. You owe yourself your freedom. I took a slow breath. I reminded myself to stay calm. I watched his eyes, waiting for the truth. My heart kept thumping, but my voice stayed steady. If this story moved you, please hit like and subscribe to Auntie. I shared these real lifestyle confessions so none of us feel alone in the mess. Remember, betrayal thrives in silence, but healing starts when we choose ourselves. If someone is hiding the truth, you are not crazy for questioning it. You deserve honesty, respect, and peace. Until next time, take care of your heart and let karma handle what you don't need to carry. I took a slow breath. I reminded myself to stay calm. I watched his eyes, waiting for the truth. My heart kept thumping, but my voice stayed steady.